Thank you, Brian. Just give us your time. Good evening, graduates, guests, distinguished guests, families, and friends. It's truly an honor for me to present this year's valedictory address on behalf of all 825 newly certified CPAs, the largest group ever. Tonight, I want to give some thanks, reflect on the journey we've taken together, and then offer a challenge. So first, the thanks. I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here on unceded traditional Aboriginal territory and to express deep gratitude to the Coast Salish people of the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish First Nations for welcoming us to this beautiful part of the world. Haichika, thank you. Thank you to all the staff at CPA and Legacy programs who have worked tirelessly over the past years, assisting us through the transition to our newly merged professional accounting body. Thank you to our friends, families, employers, marketers, and teachers. Thanks especially to Erin Kriya, my favorite teacher, who supported us in various ways, from encouraging words and help at home to career mentorship and time off work for exams. Thank you, fellow graduates, students, for your collaboration and support in online discussions, classes, and group assignments. I really enjoyed learning and sharing with you. To all my fellow graduates, congratulations. Félicitations, felicidades, gongshi, bidavate, I think that's the way to say it, vadahayo, pozdravlenia, and not to exclude anyone, in the universal language, woohoo! We did it! Or perhaps I should say, phew, we made it. I think you all know what I mean. So I'm curious, how many of you took more than one course at a time so you could finish by this fall? Let's see a show of hands. So a few of you. Okay. Who worked full-time while studying? Yeah, most of you. And who has children? Yeah. Who learned English as a second language? I'm thinking like 70% of you. That's a lot. From that show of hands, it's clear we've faced many challenges throughout our studies. Becoming a CPA requires self-motivation, determination, sacrifice, and an ability to balance studies with the demands of a job, family, and other obligations. And the stamina to sit at a computer for 12 hours a day. All I want for Christmas is a standing desk. Despite these challenges, there are no shortcuts to completing the program, and a strong ethical culture is instilled in us from day one. And that's what I want to speak to you about this evening. The power of accountants, of all of us, to take a leadership role in the ethical shift the world needs today. It's no secret that we're entering this next phase of our careers at a time when the world faces enormous challenges. We understand that respect for diversity among people and the planet is essential for a just society. We see that the pursuit of unrestrained economic growth has reached its social and ecological limits. We know that climate change, pollution, resource depletion, and the widening gap between rich and poor are challenges that affect us, our families, and the companies we work for. We don't have to be revolutionaries. We are accountants after all. But to quote a term used by the late Grace Chin Lee, we can be solutionaries. I encourage everyone here to be a solutionary, to create a healthy and equitable world in any way you can. Why us, you ask? Because we've been trained for this. Let me explain. For me, the ethics taught in the program were a refreshing change from my undergraduate years in business in the early 90s, when the topic was never mentioned. Fast forward 2 decades to my elation during the first week of accounting studies when we were introduced to so many ethics readings. My faith and idealism were restored. I was reassured that I had chosen the right profession, one whose role is to serve the public's interest first and foremost. To be encouraged to be truthful, transparent, fair, and independent is a profession that I fully embrace. But our challenge is greater than that. Accountants are in a position to help because we are trained to be accountable and to think about values. How well do numbers represent our true values? I often wonder, why does an executive earn 50 times more than the average employee? How do we put a price on clean air, land, and water? The Indian environmental economist Pavan Sukhdev says we still have a lot to learn about the nature of value and the value of nature. Whenever someone profits by damaging the environment and exploiting workers, the costs are transferred to innocent parties. These types of ethical valuations don't make sense. But accounting does make sense to me. The debit credit part of it, I mean. Whenever you receive or give up something, there's an offsetting effect that needs to be accounted for. Make a sale, earn cash. Pollute the environment, record an expense or liability to account for present or future cleanup costs. We can better manage our resources when we measure and report them, when we're accountable for our values. Personally, I strive to be accountable for my values. I value good health for people and the planet, so I commute by bicycle or I walk, and I consider food as medicine. I value my community, local agriculture, and self-reliance, so I created a community garden where I grow my own vegetables. I value living within my means and having a colorful, unique style, but certain labor practices in the fashion industry trouble me, so I make my own clothes. What are your values, and do you live according to them? This is what it means to have integrity. In our career, we will witness questionable ethics. We may face unethical requests. Being an ethical accountant requires strength, good judgment, honesty, and unwavering adherence to a strong moral compass. Accountants are the best watchdogs of corporate ethics, protecting the public against deception and harm. We can help prevent fraud and tax evasion. We can ensure full disclosure is made for related party relationships between our firm and our clients, especially when the firm benefits from substantial public contracts and private consulting work. Our independence must not be jeopardized by such related party interests. We can ensure good management of our shared resources, not just financial, but natural and human capital as well. We can account for the full environmental and social costs from resource extraction, development, and transportation. We can assign value to nature's services, such as the CO2 absorbed by forests and the freshwater used in industrial activities. We can track carbon emissions and suggest ways to reduce waste and energy use. We can ensure compliance with our legal duty to consult and accommodate First Nations regarding resource and land use plans. We can make sure that corporate social responsibility is not just a superficial public relations tactic, but a meaningful framework for employees, managers, and owners to be proactive and implement better environmental and social business practices. We can speak out if we witness corruption and crime. It takes courage because unethical people in power will try anything to cover up their actions and silence whistleblowers. The truth is hard to admit for those determined to protect their self-interest and public image. But exposing the truth is necessary if we want to prevent further public harm and injustice. Accountants can lead the way along the ethical path. We must remember that a viable economy requires that the environment and our social systems are sustainable over the long term for the next 7 generations, not just the next fiscal period. Today, we graduate, but I believe education never ends. We're tested throughout our lives. If we don't pass a particular test the first time, it will present itself in a more difficult form the next time, or be left to subsequent generations. So, as you go forward in your careers and lives, I encourage all of us to do our best to pass the life tests we face. Be accountable for your own and your organization's actions and values. Be a solutionary with your eye on the public interest in everything you do. Act with integrity. Contribute in any way you can to improving our shared values of happiness, harmony, and a healthy world. To me, this is what it means to follow the ethical path of the Chartered Professional Accountant. I hope you will all join me. The world needs us. Thank you.
So thank you, Niki. Your thoughts on ethics are particularly important because all of the graduates here today are not only celebrating attainment of their designation, but also, as you mentioned, joining a profession where they can count on more than 33,000 of their colleagues here in BC, and as we heard earlier as well, the over 200,000 across the country. We have a strong voice. All of us have made a commitment to preserving our profession's high standards of integrity and serving to protect the public interest. Certainly you left us with many messages to consider. The CPA, CGA, and